The Arakni Armory deck is a fantastic product, and is a good entry point into the Assassin class. The deck is really very solid out of the box from a pick up and play standpoint, and offers strong value with a couple of very strong exclusive includes that are sure to find their place in Classic Constructed and Silver Age alike. Inside your Arakni Armory deck, you'll find a 60 card deck, plus 2 weapons, a full equipment suite, and of course, headlined by Arakni slipped through the cracks. The deck introduces new card designs, which synergize to create multiple on-hit threats across the combat chain. The deck focuses on landing marks on the opponent, which then activate beneficial effects on a number of attacks within the deck, many of which are on-hit effects that disrupt the opponent. And to ensure those hits land, the deck contains what seems like the obligatory suite of attack reactions, helping you to both pump and shred your way to victory. We're starting our video today by acknowledging the challenge to a true budget approach for the Assassin class. Assassins as a class are inextricably tied to their incredibly powerful Majestics. In fact, it's not really a stretch to argue that, probably more than any other class, Assassins need these tools to really thrive. As such, while acknowledging that every player has their own individual vision of what the word budget truly means, today's video seeks to create a truly armory-ready deck for less than $60 US in upgrades, bringing the total cost with the Armory deck purchase to less than $100 US. Now, to be truly armory-ready, we need to make some tweaks to the main deck itself, and certainly via the addition of a robust sideboard able to flex the deck into different opponents. Then, we'll spend the last portion of today's video outlining some future upgrade options that you can grow into over time. Assassins have no shortage of stealth attacks, meaning that customizing the Arakni build has many potential paths. However, there is no better way to deliver marks on demand than with flick knives. And while I very much grant that the concept of a legendary rarity card as the first upgrade may not feel very budget, I get it, I do. The fact is that flick knives is so integral to the approach and simultaneously sits at around $18 US, which in the grand scheme of what we're trying to do here is manageable. A big step to be sure, but well worth it as a starting point into a much larger world. Our strategy today will be leaning hard into the Flick Knives enabled massive dagger damage package, centered on Kiss of Death and backed up by Tarantula Toxin and a nasty little synergy with Toxicity. Kiss of Death is a nasty little card. While it's a pretty standard 0/3 red stealth attack, it carries the dagger subtype, which makes the potential interactions with this card anything but standard. As a dagger, Kiss of Death can be flicked with flick knives. As a dagger, Kiss of Death can be flicked with flick knives. And if Kiss of Death hits with such a flick effect, it counts as an action card hitting. As such, flicking Kiss of Death not only deals 1 damage from the flick knives effect, but also triggers its own hit effect of the loss of 1 life. But it doesn't stop there. Where it gets truly nasty is if we impart additional effects onto Kiss of Death, such as with Spike with Bloodrot or, even more vicious, Toxicity. Toxicity is a non-attack action that gives the next attack action card when this hits a hero, they lose health, -4 health in the case of the yellow version. And because Toxicity imparts its effect onto Kiss of Death, when flicked it hits for 1, triggers 1 loss of life, and the 4 life loss from Toxicity. Absolutely gross. And once we have empty slots after having flicked our daggers, we can actively improve our position. Orb Weaver Spinneret not only pumps your next stealth attack, but creates a Graphene Calicera token. A stealth dagger that, with ASC, can take advantage of the go again, in addition to a lot of the standard stealth synergy. While an innocuous little card with no disruptive on hit, Double Trouble gets +2 when you've activated 2 attack reactions on its link. And that isn't a hard task with our Assassin kit, especially when you consider that the onboard attack reactions from equipment do absolutely count. This card is effective in both red and blue, as it only scales by color on the base attack and not the pump. Blue Double Trouble is an amazing card with one of our potential future upgrade cards, hence the big difference in price between the two. Furthermore, while marked, switching into this card from a Take Up the Mantle, of which we are adding 1 additional copy to bring us up to 3, allows an incredible amount of damage to be threatened, not to mention the 2 from the top of the deck. Another totally fair and balanced assassin card interaction lies in the pairing of the new card from this deck, Horrors of the Past, and the previously mentioned attack reaction, Take Up the Mantle. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, the technical rules lawyering on how this works gets pretty into the weeds, but in short, the Horrors effect happens on attack, and thus imparts the previous effect to the attack regardless of the fact that Mantle can change the card entirely. Practically, what this means is that a second position Horrors of the Past, when paired with Take Up the Mantle, can threaten 2 card effects. Imagine threatening a Black Widow with the power bonus of Double Trouble. Not too shabby at all. As such, yes, we are adding a third Take Up the Mantle because I mean, heck yeah. For our main deck upgrades, we'll be removing 22 cards and backfilling them with some more effective includes. Now, not all of the removes will be gone entirely, some will move into the sideboard, but we'll talk about that a little later. We start, of course, with Flick Knives in the massive dagger damage package. As already mentioned, but worth repeating, Flick Knives forms the backbone of our entire strategy, coming in to replace the arm piece. We're bringing in 3 copies of Kiss of Death to establish our threat baseline. This card serves not only as a threat itself, but as a linchpin for so much of what we're trying to do. We run yellow toxicity because it can pitch for a dagger swing if it isn't drawn at the right time, and 2 copies is the correct number because we want to minimize our chances of drawing 2 of them at the same time. Now, the build out of this package eats up the majority of our budget, coming into just shy of 40 US. That said, not only is this well worth the purchase from a power output standpoint, but it allows you to slip through the cracks into a world of tricky assassin synergy. Orbweaver Spinneret is very effective, pumping your next stealth by 3 and creating a Graphene Calicera. One important point of note here is that if you aren't on board with buying Flick Knives, which again you probably should as it is fundamental to this build, but even so, if you don't, Orbweaver Spinneret actually isn't a good include, as you'll have no open slots for the Graphene token to backfill. Tarantula Toxin is incredibly nasty with Kiss of Death, providing both a pump and a shred effect, but it offers equal threat once you've collated the Calicera token. To roughly maintain attack reaction density, we're swapping this out with Stains of the Redback. Because we're only running 1 copy of Hunter's Clave in this budget build, the need to bring that dagger back is very real. As such, 3 copies of Pick Up the Point come in for backfill capacity. So with those changes, our main deck upgrades consist of the following. We will be removing 22 cards, Rage Baiters, Mark of the Funnel Web red and blue for a total of 5, 3 Prowl red, 3 Scuttle the Canal red, 3 Stains of the Redback red, 3 Pick to Pieces red, which yes, will be moving to the sideboard, as will the 1 copy of Undercover Acquisition, also moving to the sideboard, and then of course 3x Reaper's Call. We will be adding in 1 Flick Knives, 3 Kiss of Death, 3 Tarantula Toxin, 3 Double Trouble red, and 3 Double Trouble blue, Pick Up the Point, 3 Orbweaver Spinnerets, 1 copy of Take Up the Mantle, 2 copies of Toxicity yellow, and 3 Double Trouble blue. Flesh and Blood Armory decks do not come equipped with a sideboard. LSS has told us that this is intentional, as they want the product to be a pick-up-and-play product, and there's a lot of logic in this. But it does mean that, in order to actually be Armory-ready, that we'll need to develop a sideboard. Constructing our sideboard is all about making our deck more robust against the other heroes we'll run up against at an armory. We start with some of the cards that we remove from the main board, but still hold value to us in specific use cases. Pick to Pieces can help to bolster cases where we just need more cards, or anything like a Prism where we have Ward on board. And while we'll only utilize just the 1 Undercover Acquisition, I mean, why the heck not against Graving Other Pirates or some others, it's 1 more Fat Deck card when needed. The next move is to ensure that our deck can handle arcane damage. Luckily, we already have built-in Arcane Barrier on our boots, but we'll also be packing Null Rune Robe for AB2. Arcane Polarity is a great include for heroes like Florian and Verdance, for example, that come with small arcane pings. But warning, this little common has rocketed up in price due to the massive interest in Silver Age, sitting at around 2 to 3 USD. I do believe this card is worth the price, however, but if you choose to not go this route, Oasis Respite will do as a budget alternative. Death Touch comes in not only as a popper, but also as a card that can fat deck in with minimal penalty. We also run Wreak Havoc, which is itself a popper and can simultaneously threaten Arsenal. Those sideboard cards will round out our upgrades, and moving over to the buy list, we see that the total comes to just over 56 USD as of the prep of this video, giving us plenty of wiggle room with market moves to ensure that we can buy and upgrade the ASC Armory deck for less than 100 US. While the upgrades presented today are a solid starting point for the deck to be Armory ready, we all know that we want to look at future upgrade paths. I warn you though, the cards we're about to discuss aren't cheap, but they will make the deck more effective in a competitive environment. For these upgrades, I'm going to be presenting them in order of what I see that your purchase priority should be. The first is a second copy of Hunter's Clave, which is a pretty straight swap for Spider's Bite. Running 2 Claves gives the flexibility and freedom to flick a mark, opening up the second slot for a Graphene backfill, while simultaneously retaining a dagger with which to stab and threaten marks. Clave is roughly 13 US as of time of shooting this, however I do suspect and hope that it will come down in price given the include of this Armory deck. Once we have a second Clave, we won't need to rely as much on retrieving it back. Pain in the Backside is a fantastic little go-again threat that fits well into this build. It either draws out blocks and paves way for your on-hit stealth effects, or it deals 1 additional damage with the poke and can supply a mark. Coming in at around 20 USD, the card is no joke, but is a clear power upgrade. And after that, it's time to go all in and embrace our inner assassin, getting the combo of Leave No Witnesses and Codex of Frailty. While Codex is always just flat out amazing, when paired with ASC's Go Again into a Codex, forcing a discard and threatening Arsenal is just so very dirty. At 28 USD for Codex and 16 USD for Leave No, well, this is yes another big step. But for someone going into the Assassin class, it's almost a mandatory pickup for the future. Persuasive Prognosis is another near staple Assassin Majestic, and when paired with just a Nick, the threat density in your deck starts to really explode. Persuasive Prognosis is another 20 USD card, and you'll want 3 of them, oh yes, you will. Just a Nick is maybe only 12, but it is on top of that. However, while obviously nasty with Prognosis itself, also works to make any of your other blue stealth attacks, such as, that's right, Blue Double Trouble, a diabolical threat. Wreak Havoc, of course, is the poor man's Command and Conquer, and a very clear upgrade path. It's clearly a far superior card, being a functional staple within the game at large. But let's not take that decision lightly, because a playset of CNC is going to run just shy of 250 US. As you pursue your fab journey, it's a card you want to consider picking up, but we get it, that's pretty crazy money. Our next upgrade slot is a bit of a you pick, because while Death Touch does do the work, and actually works pretty well with Codex, it can be optimized. Erase Face is a solid include for talented heroes who care about their cards being a specific type, Lightning, Earth, Draconic, and so on. And Weakest Link is a solid choice for metas where some heroes rely on instants. That's why these are largely sideboard cards, able to be called in as weapons against targeted situations. The price tag on these aren't as bad as CNC, but still not something you'd be proud to tell your partner you spent the rent money on. The final upgrade is perhaps the most iconic card in all of Flesh and Blood, and for good reason. Fyendal Spring Tunic offers 1 resource every 3 turns, and can enable some pretty crazy things. Now, going from, your current chess piece to Tunic isn't cheap. It'll run you to the tune of about 150 US. That may seem crazy, and yeah, for most of us it is, but it's arguably one of the most useful cards in all of Flesh and Blood. Even so, I have it here as a last upgrade, not just due to the price, but also because there are other options, such as the one in your Armory deck, that while not as efficient in-game, may be more efficient for your wallet. Well, my fab friends, that's the ASC budget build, with upskill pathways clearly laid out. I did my best to keep it quick and dirty, but also ensure the reasoning and lines were clear. If you appreciated this even slightly, give it a like, and consider subscribing for some more awesome, level-headed fab content. Thank you, my Flesh and Blood friends, and go Commando.